All right. That sound familiar to anybody? Huh? No? It's Cyberball. Now, this week, I'm going to be doing a two for one here. So, this week's destination on memory lane is Cyberball and Cyberball 2072. Mostly Cyberball, but anyhow. Now, many of you may have recognized this game or even just the tune as, another game that came out for the arcades. I was ported to the console. This is where I played it on console. I never played another. It's one of these episodes where I didn't play the original format of it. Uh, but it's an arcadey style football game, but instead of American football to be specific, and instead of people, it's robots. All right. Now, this is a game that came out in 1988, developed and published by Atari for the arcades. All right. Designed by John Sallwhite. I think I'm saying his name right. Sallwitz. I'm sorry. Sallwitz. And the original Cyberball, the first one here, is based in the year 2022. All right. Well, we're halfway through 2026, and the NFL still has people in it, not robots. So maybe we got to wait another 46 years for that one. The Cyberball 2072 was based in the year 2072. Hence the 46-year reference there. Now, it's a 7-man variation of American football, and like I said, instead of peoples, with robots. Now, the arcade cabinet for this was big. I've seen pictures of it. Now, if you played it back in the day on the actual arcade cabinet, you know it's huge. It's a big arcade cabinet. You know, it was dual monitor. Okay, so it was two screens, and it was two players per screen for a total of four players total. And so like you had a screen here. It was like basically like two arcade cabinets put together, and it wasn't back to back. It was kind of side to side, just a little bit, yeah, catty cornered because like there was each monitor was kind of like at an angle, and then there was like a wall or something separating the two because it was at an angle. So each monitor was like a diagonal angle here, and so like I said, it was two sets of controls. So obviously two players per monitor, and players on each side could play against computer opponents, or you can play head to head. So it can be you versus a friend, you and a friend versus two other friends, or just you versus the computer like a normal arcade game. So there were some differences in this game. Now they did make it fun and make it arcadey and make it original. So instead of like for those of you who are familiar with American football and the NFL, know that there are four downs, and what downs are basically when the team has possession of the football, they have four attempts to get it to the end zone for a touchdown. Sometimes they get more than that if they reach a certain distance. So after they hit a certain distance, they can keep getting first down. You know, for Cyberball, there wasn't downs. Okay, the football that these robots played with, it had like a temperature kind of a system, and the temperature was cool, warm, hot, and critical. Okay, so first down, second down, third down, fourth down, cool, warm, hot, critical. The ball cools down once you hit the 50-yard line or once the ball has been turned over. So, in other words, like an interception, the ball was fumbled and the other team picked it up, or a turnover on downs. What a turnover on downs is, for those who don't know football, is that after your fourth attempt, after that fourth down, and you still haven't gotten past a certain line to hit first down or get a touchdown, the ball automatically goes to the opposing team. Critical, which is the fourth down in this game, uh, the ball is like white hot. All right, it's glowing. You don't hit a certain distance, or you don't get a touchdown, or you don't do anything to get it away from that critical. The ball is going to explode. When a ball explodes, it's going to explode the carrier of the ball as well. So in other words, Sure, just like in real football, sometimes players get hurt and they can't return to the game, so now you're down one player. Cyberball 2072, when a robot is down, you can kind of like rebuild them and repair them because they're robots and throw them back out on the field. However, the robots themselves have a finite kind of, I don't want to say armor, but like they can only take so much damage before they blow up themselves. Okay. Robots can explode after excessive damage. So, they'll be, normal at first, shiny, hot, hip, ready to go. Then they'll start to slow down. Then they'll start showing wear and tear and dents and scratches. Then they'll start to smoke. Then they'll be on fire. Once they are on fire and they get hit when they're on fire, they will explode. But like I said, you can repair and fix up these robots. You can even give them upgrades like more armor, faster speed, stuff like that. And the way you can do that is from the money you get while playing. So you earn some rewards and some money, and you put that towards your players to kind of upgrade your team. Much more simpler than the NFL, right? But even back in the '80s, they already predicted AI would take over everything. All right, I remember playing this for the first time on my PSP. It's on like the Sega Genesis Classics collection, and this is one of the games along with Arch Rivals. That was last week's episode, and I had fun. I love these. Like I said in the last episode, I love these arcadey sports games. Now, don't get me wrong, Madden is fun, especially at the old PS2 days. Madden 2008 is my favorite one. These games are fun, and just like Arch Rivals, you don't need to know anything about the sport. You just need to know that, okay, you got the ball, you have a finite amount of attempts to do something with it, whether it's to get a touchdown, cross the 50-yard line, or lose the ball somehow. It's there. I mean, there are kind of plays and there are formations, because it is sports, it is football, but it's not like real football. It's not a simulation. Like you don't need to know all these plays. You don't need to know what an I formation is, or a single formation, or a strong back. You don't need to know anything like that. You just need to do a run play or a pass play. That's it. And you have a limited amount of options for those. And then just play, try to get touchdowns, and just like in real football, the way you win is, whoever gets the most touchdowns, the most points, by the end of the game wins. One thing I noticed when I was playing, which I didn't notice until like halfway through my little playthrough here, because I didn't do like any, which I don't think there's story modes, and I think it's just all like exhibition matches. Is that whoever the ball carrier is, so like these robots, they look like just regular robots, like people. They have two arms, two legs, feet, body, and a head, except for the ball carrier. The ball carrier, their legs would transform into like these tank treads. Kind of like those treads you see on like on a tank, like a military tank. And they're just strolling up. So instead of running, they're riding up. Which I noticed that, which I noticed, I didn't take notice of it, but I realized that I was like, I noticed like this one person is moving faster than all the other players. I was like, oh yeah, because all the other players have feet and I'm on treads. Not wheels necessarily. I think some have wheels, but mostly treads. And that's something I took notice in. I think that's how it's always been, because what I played is not like an emulation or nothing. It's an actual port that they've put over on a physical disc. But who out there played this on it was on NES, the Sega Genesis. I I think it was on the Master System. I'm not entirely sure, but the Genesis and NES for sure. and of course the arcades. Who out there played it on the arcade cabinet? Because if you did, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how it was built. You know, but it was cool because like I like seeing stuff like that because that's attention grabbing. That gets your attention. I couldn't find much on how much money this game made, but I know like I mean they had to do pretty good. I mean it was a fun arcade game. This is a game just like Arch Rivals. Last week I talked about this. This is a game I would love to see brought back and remastered with today's graphics. I would love to play this on the PS5 or the Switch or the Xbox or even on Steam. You know, like I would love to see this kind of blow up and get more than because they did it with some games. You know, they did it with Mutant League Football. They did it with Shaq Fu. You know, why can't they do it with these games? They did it with NBA Jam, I believe. I know NBA Jam's on the PS2 when it originally came out in the arcades. I don't remember if they, I think they did for the PS3. Might be on the 360 as well, but I know on the PS3 for sure. But like, I would love to see these come back. You know, because this is fun. It's a fun game. I like it. You know, I'm not the world's biggest football fan. You know, I like football more than basketball, but I'm a hockey guy. That's me. That's my bias right there. But this game is still fun. It still is. You know, you can always have a good time playing any kind of sports game with friends, whether it's you guys are the biggest sports fans or not, but it's that friendly competition because it still brings that kind of that angst and anxiety in a good way. Okay, not the bad kind where it kind of just fucks your life up. I'm talking about the good kind. It's like, oh man. I'm talking about. It's like, man, it's the 30 seconds left. I'm one touchdown away from winning. It's that type of antsiness you'll get playing games like this, especially with your friends. Sure, the computer, but eventually you just get bored with it. Some of these games, what I think that kind of helped hold these games back was just like the single player by itself got boring after a while, unless you played it with a friend. But still, I would love to see this. Put it online, and do online stuff like Madden. You can go online and play with people all around the world. Play Madden, play Cyberball 2072 or whatever, whichever one. And put it online and play it with people around the world or your friends. Get a leaderboard going. That'd be cool. You know what I'm saying? Maybe put a season mode in there. It's they can do a lot with this with the technology that there is today and the amount of money that the video game community and world has now compared to the 80s. You know, because you got to think this is 1988 that this game came out. Arcades were still big. NES was full and fledged and running, and we're just 2 years away from the Super Nintendo. And I tell you what, just saying that alone, I mean, we all know the jump from the NES to the Super NES. We all know the jump from the Sega Master System to the Sega Genesis, and we all know the battles that Nintendo and Sega brought themselves. You know, and arcades and the evolution, the fact that it got to a point where you didn't really need to go anywhere to play your games. The only people that did were people who I guess didn't have the money to have all those games, because even growing up, whether you were born and raised in those days or even like in the 90s and early 2000s like myself, still like you got games when it was either A, your birthday, B, Christmas, or C, which wasn't often, C was not often, a game that was a good price. Like, I was a big sports fan, so I had a lot of sports games because sports games would go down in price pretty fast. You know, like if there was a game I really wanted, let's say it was an RPG and it comes out brand new, $60 at the time, and some time has passed and it's $40, that's a no-no. However, football game comes out and now that same football game is only $6. Why not $6? You know, that was option C, but A and B mostly, whether it was your birthday or Christmas. And the games like Cyberball, I feel like even in the arcade days, you kind of had to bring a lot to the table because not only the competition of the other games and developers, but also to bring in a broader audience, you know. So that's why there's, you know, these platformers, puzzle games, shooters, sports games, you know, to bring in a broader audience, you know, like, oh, well, these people seem to like platformers. So like, okay, so there's Donkey Kong and, you know, oh, these people like shooters. Well, here's Galaga. Well, these people like sports. Well, here's Cyberball. You know, it's kind of bring a lot to the table, just how it is now, except it's just way more overwhelming now because there's like a new game that comes out every month versus, you know, every 6 months to a year back then. You know, it's a whole different time. But Cyberball, and I'm gonna keep stressing this until somebody hears it. You know, let's remake it. Let's it's already remade, but I didn't see it. You know, like I know it was on like Xbox 360 for a while. I don't know if it's physical, but I know it was on like the Xbox Live. Of course, the Sega Genesis, not the Sega Classics collection because that's a different collection. It was on like the Sega Genesis something other collection. I can't remember. I got it over there in my collection, but it has like Arch Rivals. It has you know, Cyberball on there. It's got, you know, a bunch of handful of games like that. Like the Sega Classics collection. That's like Sonic and Golden Axe and Altered Beast. You know, the games that made Sega. This other collection were like the runner ups of that. You know what I'm saying? But I would love to see this come back. I would love to see it on the modern systems with the bright, vibrant graphics of the HD and 4K, and you know, playing with a modern controller and playing with your friends, playing online with other people, seeing what they can do with it. You know, like I said, it did it with some other games. They can do more. They can do more. You know, and that's kind of why I started this podcast because there's a lot of games like these and arch rivals that kind of got swept under the rug or overshadowed by the other games. When you think arcade basketball games, you don't think arch rivals, you think NBA Jam, you know? And there wasn't a whole lot of arcade football games. You know, this is one of the bigger ones, but, you know, still, I feel like they could have gone more with this. And I feel like they, you know, I also feel like they can. They can, and they kind of want to, but they're also kind of afraid because everything is about money now. So, nobody wants to take a risk of revamping and bringing back a game from the 80s and 90s and ramp it up. You know, I feel like they can do well. Just touch up the graphics. They don't need to do something too special. Don't charge so much for it. Just, you know, ramp up the graphics, sell it for $30, maybe 40 instead of the casual $70 a game is nowadays. I'm sure you guys I'll buy it. Fuck. It's a fun enough game. I'll buy it. An HD modern remaster of it. Why not? You know, if I would love to play it, you know, this is a game I want to add to my collection physically so I can play it on a bigger TV and not my tiny PSP, you know? Because the screen is different. Now, sir, I have the cord to, you know, hook it up, hook your PSP up to a TV so you can play it on a TV, but at the same time, it's a PSP. It's single player, you know? I'm gonna play with a friend, you know, make it more interesting because there's only so many things you can do playing with the computer before you get bored with it. And like I said earlier, that's kind of what held these games back. But they can bring it back and do something more with it, so that way it's not as boring and just as fun. Maybe more. That's all I can say about Cyberball 2072. You know. And for those of you, you get to check out if you get a chance, just look at the picture of the arcade cabinet because it was kind of like I feel like I described it the best I could, but it's not side by side. It's kind of catty cornered to itself, but it's still like one giant cabinet. You know, it's still one piece. Uh, you know, there's a lot of games I wish I experienced, just like many of you out there. But you know, I grew up a Nintendo kid. I started with Super Nintendo, then I grew, you know, became a PlayStation kid, and the rest was history. Anyways, man, this is another shorter episode, but I just had to give this game its flowers. Just like all the other ones. I don't want these games to be forgotten, but I also don't want people who love these games to kind of like feel like they're the only ones. We all have like that sense of a fever dream. Like what was that football game with the robots? Like, oh, here it is, Cyberball 2072, Cyberball. You know. Anyways, man, thanks for listening. Gaming Memory Lane. Uh, be sure to follow my socials, Facebook and Instagram. Kevin Gill Gaming. Be sure to follow my YouTube. It's starting to gain some traffic over there, and I love it. Over 100 subscribers. On my way to make 100 more, and I love it. It's also Kevin Gill Gaming. Currently doing a playthrough of Simpsons Road Rage for the PS2. Having fun with that. Be sure to check out my other Let's Play series on there, like Batman Arkham Asylum, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World, and many, many more to come. And be sure to follow my Reddit, r/gaming memory lane. All my sources have the same profile picture, so you know at the right place. And all these sources, well, not all the sources, mostly my YouTube and Reddit, are other ways to kind of tune into the podcast. All right, y'all. I'm out.